Hello there. My name is Klaus Roskilde, and I'm doing 100 innovation keynotes in 100 days. Today, I'm going to talk about cutting corners. I'm also going to talk about learning how to love disaster. But the first thing is, sometimes you're in a bad position, and you need to do what you've promised. You need to do what's necessary, but you have to cut off a little bit. You have to do less than your best. You have to make it work somehow with the resources you have, the time you have, the money you have. You have to make sure that you deliver, but sometimes it's good to over-deliver. Other times you kind of need to under-deliver. It's about priorities. And innovation, you often end up in a situation where you've said you're going to do a thing or you're trying to do a thing, and there's some formality in the way. And you know that you can either uphold that formality, even though you're not exactly upholding the spirit, or you can do what you think you should do. You can do the thing that can do it to the best of your ability, but that will mean sacrifices down the road, or that will mean problems down the road that you could have avoided if you'd just taken that hard decision and said, enough is enough. Now, case in point, it's Sunday evening. It's 1:45. I have to be up in the morning. I have a lot of work to do. My mother and stepfather are going to visit. We still have a daughter who needs to go to bed. And right now, sitting down, creating a keynote, recording the keynote, editing the keynote, uploading the keynote, that's going to take time. Could I do it? Sure, I could do it, of course. But it would end up being a little bit later than I want it to be before I was done. So now the question is it worth it? Who decides if it's worth it? What does it mean to be worth it? In this case, I made the decision to say I'm not going to deliver a bad keynote. I'm not going to deliver something that is just crap. I'm going to deliver something that's good. But I'm not going to spend the time that I normally would on creating it because I simply don't have that time. So instead, I'm going to repurpose. I'm going to take something that is a keynote. I've done it before. I think it's 18 minutes or so. It's a good keynote. But technically, it's not at the standard I'd like to deliver it now. It's not at the standard I can deliver it now. So I'm taking something that is deliberately subpar, that is less than what I could do. But I'm upholding the formality. I'm upholding the one keynote a day rule that I've set for myself. And I'm still delivering value. I'm still delivering what I think is an awesome keynote. And it was done in front of an audience. There were happy people, all that sort of thing. So it's not that it's bad. It's just that I could do better. And sometimes we need to remember not to do better, just to do well enough. Because if not, our own innovation projects are going to crush us. So with that as an intro, I give you today's keynote. Hello, everyone. I'm going to tell you about disaster and about crisis and about why we should, if not be happy about this, we should at least take advantage of it. First of all, who am I? I'm the director of the College of Extraordinary Experiences and a crazy experience design professional development conference and company that takes place in a Polish castle, because that's, of course, where you have conferences these days. Second, I'm a coach at McKinsey & Company. So I also have my corporate credentials decently in order. I've just finished my book number 30, so I have some level of productivity. And last but not least, I have roughly €1 million in personal debt. And yes, €1 million in personal debt. Not that my company owes the money, but that when I crashed my last company, I ended up personally owing roughly €1 million. Now, I've gotten rid of some of that debt since then, but I'm no stranger to disaster, especially of the economic kind. And let's talk about disaster for a moment. First of all, I have 5 things that I want to share with you. Hopefully you will find some of them insightful or useful, and we're going to have a small poll at the end. And anything I say, you are free to ignore. This is just advice. You can use it or you cannot use it. Number 1, it looks scarier than it is. Now I want you to imagine a cliff and 2 people. Here, They look kind of stylish in their orange matching jackets, and the cliff looks suitably steep. Ignore the Photoshop part of the picture. That's to illustrate a point. Now I want to imagine that you're here. This is your viewpoint. You're pretty far away. This is the distance between you and those two probably lovebirds, as they look like they're holding hands and looking over a beautiful cliff. From where you're standing, it looks like massive danger because you can't see how close they are to the edge, except it looks dangerous as hell. Now let's move a little bit closer. If we switch like this, a little bit less Photoshop, and the viewpoint is here, it still looks dangerous, but not as dangerous because you can still see they're close to the edge, but the closer you move, the less scary it looks. And if we move even closer, then we start to see, oh, is it even dangerous or is there some maneuver room? The green spot here is, are they actually that close to the cliff or do they have like a meter or a meter and a half to move? That's what I call maneuver room. And if we shift to their viewpoint, then maybe it's even safe. They look pretty relaxed, even on this pixelated picture. There's plenty of maneuver room in front of them. And seen from their viewpoint, this is not a highly dangerous situation. Now, of course, I'm not saying that you should just run to the edge of the cliff. What I am saying is that when you are close to the cliff, whether it's an economic one or a physical one or a personal one, you will find out that the interesting thing is the maneuver room, not the apparent danger. There was an episode at our old office a couple of years ago before the company crashed when me and my CEO, we came into the office and the others said, why are you guys smiling? You have these big smiles. And we said, yes, today is a good day because today we have cash flow for 4 days before we go into minus. And then one of them said, but isn't that like scary and crazy? And don't people like go nuts if they only have 3 months of cash flow? I said, sure. But for the last 2 weeks, we've been operating with 1 to 2 day cash flow. We've been getting up in the morning, needing to find solid amounts of money before going to bed without knowing how. So 4 days, it was beautiful. We had maneuver room. It was great. Number one, it looks scarier than it is. Number two, the rules just went bye-bye. And what does that even mean? It means that these kind of meetings don't really exist right now. Everybody right now is either struggling or they are thriving or they're doing both at once or they're just panicking. But nobody's having these boring, do we even need to have this meeting anyway? Because everybody's impacted by this, positively, negatively, some a little, some a lot. And we all need to work in new ways. We need to work faster. There are things that were seen as impossible before that are now standard. And if we just say, let's just do it the way we used to do, then it's going to go wrong. So we all need to accept that there are new ways of working, whether it's digital, whether it's self-led, whether it's cross-industry, doesn't matter. We need to accept that we need to work in new ways. And the slow get left behind. Having the audacity and the courage to say, I'm going. You can keep talking. This is a committee. Go, talk. I'm going. We're moving. We're doing it. We're buying it. We're selling it. We're advertising it. We're trying it. The slow get left behind. And when action is king, fear is the kingslayer. And if you'll pardon the Game of Thrones reference, what I mean by that is that if we know that we have to act fast, we know that we have to act differently, then fear of failure is what's going to kill us. Not failing. That's fair enough. We all fail at things. But somebody's saying, let's not do it because it might go wrong. To a certain extent, that's good. That's necessary. We shouldn't just go headlessly rushing into things. But if we don't rush, if we don't stab the king once in a while, if we don't try out something new that may fail, then we're going to kill ourselves with fear because the world is at our throats. And with this beautiful illustration, this is a whole new card game. And the reality is that nobody knows the rules because the rules don't apply anymore. Those who dare get to rewrite them. It may fail. If you're one of the people saying, we're going to rewrite the rules of aviation or of airlines or of airports or of tourism or of anything, sure, you may fail, but there's also a chance you might succeed. And the only thing that's guaranteed is that if you just wait and do what you did yesterday, then it's going to go wrong because the rules have changed. The rules just went bye-bye. That's number two. Number three, you either try or you die. The old truths are dead. Things like we can't work remotely, we can't lead remotely. I've heard all of them, even at decently high levels. We can't sell remotely. Oh, I've heard this so many times. Well, guess what? We can work remotely. It's being proven over and over again. And the people who've done this for 5, 10 years are saying, we knew this. Studies have proved this, and now you're catching on board. Well, better late than never. We can lead remotely. There was a German company, I'm not going to name them, that I was slightly involved with, where one of them says, how can I see that my workers are being productive if their webcams are off so I can't watch them work? Turns out that's maybe not the right way of attacking this problem, but we can lead remotely. We just can't do it the way we used to. We can sell remotely. There are people who are making million-dollar sales. I would say billion-dollar, but I don't really have anybody in that space, but I'm sure it happens, who are selling remotely. It's possible. So whenever I hear one of those, yes, you can work remotely, but you can't sell without like feeling their handshake and looking into their eyes and going to the sauna together. Well, you can. It's just different. And the reason is that tomorrow is not like yesterday. Data-driven isn't enough. Data-driven is great. Data is lovely. I love numbers. You can play with them for weeks and you can find out interesting things. But data works best when tomorrow looks more or less like yesterday. And right now, tomorrow does not look like yesterday. And that means that data-driven is looking to the past and not to the future. We need to ask questions, even stupid ones. What would it be like to be an airline if you had no planes? What would it be like to be an airport if there were no planes? How do you remain a tourist destination if nobody can travel to where you are? Do you do a partnership with a video game company? Do you attract authors to write about your place? I'd say that the amount of people who have visited New York via a television show or a novel or a movie is a lot higher than the amount of people who've actually physically visited New York. And even if you said New York is now under quarantine for the next year, there would still be TV shows there, there would still be movies there, there would still be books there. New York would still be a tourist destination even if nobody went there. Now, is it a stupid question to ask, how do we keep ourselves as a tourist destination if nobody can come? Yes, it is, but it might lead to interesting insights anyway. We need to try new things even if they fail, and some of them will fail. We need to build in a margin of error. This is not the time for a no failure culture. And we need to navigate chaos. We need to do it at home with screaming kids, with moving companies, with people drilling, with screens, with coffee. These are things I can see on the screen, so I'm just listing them. But the reality is that there's so much chaos out there in our daily lives, in our personal ones. Just the fact that we need to do this meeting over Zoom and there's a chance that somebody like me will show up at a different time zone is something we didn't need to worry about before. We need to navigate chaos, even if it's not easy. Because it's really very simple. Number 3, you either try or you die. Number 4, humans will be humans. And that means that small things matter. So I want to tell you a story. This is the Bishop of Roskilde Cathedral in Denmark, one of the 12 bishops in Denmark, and because there are 12 cathedrals. So 10 years ago, my old company started doing events with Roskilde Cathedral, and these were like grand spectacles with several thousand people, and there's a 6.5 meter dove with prayers hanging underneath it, and a light show and music, and it was great. It was lovely. People loved it. It's still going on right now in a different format, or at least will after COVID. But at the very first event we did, when the whole thing was over, the 2-hour session was over, the bishop would leave the altar, you can see it in the background, and he would lead the kids who would rise behind him. Rock and roll music would play, and he would slowly march while dancing. He dances well. He would slowly march while dancing to the gate, the front gate of the church. It would open, he would turn around, and he would high-five every confirmation student, every teenager as they left while music was playing. Beautiful ending to a great event. There's just one problem, that when we done the grand rehearsal, everything worked smoothly. But when we did the first run out of 6, the first run, the bishop goes down there, the gate doesn't open. Panic starts to spread. People start to spread into side entrances. The bishop's looking around. He's trying to salvage the situation and smiling, but nobody knows what's actually going on. Now, the tricky thing here is that the guy who was in charge of opening the gate, the only one who had the key to the big, massive bronze gate, he was at the bathroom. And he hadn't really considered that timing that bathroom break was pretty essential because he had an important job. He just thought, oh, well, I'll get back, no problem. And it turned out he didn't. So We never had that problem again, but we definitely had it the first time. And of course, he didn't get fired. Of course, we didn't yell at him. We just laughed and said, let's not do that the next time. Because the reality is that even with a simple thing like the key being missing, humans will be humans. Things happen. Have you been in any of this meeting? Any of these meetings? This is from my old home office. You might not have the same tasteful purplish decorations in your background or the rocking chair with a nice pillow, but I'm sure you've been in this. When the meeting starts, we'll let people know. Well, it turns out it never started because the person was in the wrong time zone. And then you just sit there waiting. Even if it's a human error, even if it's a small thing, these are things that kill grand strategies. These are things that kill execution plans. One of my coworkers had done a presentation and I needed to do some edits to it before I was going to do it. And then when I logged on, it said, you need permission, because of course he'd shared it. He just hadn't shared editing rights. And then he'd gone on vacation and was off the grid for a week. These sorts of things happen. We all make mistakes, even more when there's crisis, because then we're in unusual situations and our routines are out the window. And that's when we need to learn and not blame. It's so easy. It's so easy to yell at people. It's so easy to get outrageously mad because something stupid happens, because somebody says, why couldn't you just do this one thing? You had one job. That's when we need to be forgiving and we need to learn. Because we can't always plan for these mistakes. We can decide how we will deal with them. We can decide the culture. We can't say, we don't make mistakes, because that's usually resource intensive to a level that's not possible. We can't all plan our organizations like the landing gear of a 747, which I'm told has 7 independent systems to make the landing gear go out. And if just one of them works, it works. We can't do that. We don't have the resources, but we can decide how we deal with mistakes when they happen. Humans will be humans, number 4. Number 5, a crisis is an opportunity. I'm not the only one saying this, but I'm going to say it in slightly different words. There's a Winston Churchill quote that I love, never let a crisis go to waste. And Churchill didn't say manufacture crisis. He didn't say create crisis, even if there's none. He just said when it's there, don't let it go to waste. Now, this is a still from the 1975 blockbuster movie Jaws by Steven Spielberg. It's widely seen as being the first real blockbuster movie in film history. It's an amazing classic. It still holds up here almost 50 years after. And one of the things it's about is about a killer giant shark here seen in the picture. It's just one small thing, that the movie had huge shark fail. During the movie, Spielberg and his team had spent $500,000, and that's $1975, not $2020. They'd spent $500,000 on building 3 mechanical sharks. Oddly enough, they were collectively named Bruce. Let's not delve into what that is. But they had 3 mechanical sharks so you could see it from 3 different angles, and they tested them. There was animatronics. It was great. They were going to make a shark movie to end all shark movies. Just one problem. The sharks apparently didn't work that well in salt water, and the animatronics died. One of the sharks even sank. What did Spielberg do? Well, instead of panicking, which I'm sure he did, there was probably a lot of crying and calling his significant others at home saying shit, shit, shit. But after he was done with that, he said, what do we do now? So what he did instead was he didn't show the shark. You only see the shark in Jaws in a few very select critical scenes. Most of the movie, you just have the ominous dun, 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 dun music, which worked beautifully, and you don't see the shark. And it turned out that this is a technique that has since been taught as part of movie kind of directing, cinematography training at movie schools around the world, because this worked beautifully. We're better at imagining danger than at seeing it, especially if it doesn't work. So, to quote Steven Spielberg himself, that all good ideas start out as bad ideas. That's why it takes so long. And sometimes you need to take an idea like, let's not show the shark, and turn it into a good idea. I'm sure that if somebody had come before the Bruces stopped working and said, let's not show the shark, they would have said, this is a shark movie. Steven, you got to show the shark. It's what it's about. And now they kind of had to. And then they improvised, and it became movie legend. So the reality is that everyone's afraid. No one has the answers. And that means the playing field is now level. It means that we're all at square one to some extent. How do we actually do this? Well, we look to others and be inspired. This is the famous scene from the Founder movie. It's part of McDonald's legend and McDonald's history. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Google the Founder tennis court scene. And basically it's about iterating using chalk marks to create a physical space and training your personnel there. I don't know how many airports use this technique, but I'm sure that some would benefit from it. That exactly. Look to others and be inspired. Give long shot ideas a chance. When Walt Disney first pitched Snow White, the animation movie, nobody wanted it. And I can't remember if it's Snow White or if it's Disneyland where he got rejected 300 times. But I think it's fair to say that Walt was right. Snow White is another legendary movie. Disneyland is legendary in itself and is now spread both as a concept and as actual theme parks around the world. Walt Disney was right, but nobody believed him to begin with. Now it's the time to give long shot ideas a chance. And test. And I'm not talking about Corona. I'm talking about different things. Try it out. Do it. Move fast. Iterate. Accept failure. Move on. Learn. Test. And not just Corona tests. And if in doubt, if you're like, okay, I need a guiding star in all this, then you should be more like Stephen. Number 5, a crisis is an opportunity. So recap, 5 things from me. 1, it looks scarier than it is. 2, the rules just went bye-bye. 3, you either try or you die. 4, humans will be humans. 5, a crisis is an opportunity. And if you take just one thing away from this presentation, just one single thing, it's this: be more like Steve. Thank you.